Okay, at this time, I'll call to order the Board of Education for the Muskego Norway School District. Verification of meeting posting. This meeting was noticed in accordance with our state's open meeting laws. Attendance roll call.
Mr. Hyde. Here. Mrs. Lawyer.
Here.
Mr. Buckmaster.
Here.
Mrs. Blair.
Here.
Mr. Zimmerman. Here. Mrs. Conley.
Here.
I'm here. We have everyone.
Thank you. If everyone would please rise if you're able, remove your covers and join Mr. Zimmerman in the Pledge of Allegiance. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Kevin. Moving on, item 1E, approval of the agenda. Motion is in order.
Second.
I'll only ask that we move item 6A to the front of the agenda. That is the referendum package. Any objection? All right, hearing none. All those in favor, state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, agenda is approved with that modification. Moving on, item 2, consent agenda. Motion is in order.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion or item a board member wishes to remove for individual consideration? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda in gross, state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda is approved. So this time we'll move on to agenda item 6A, which would be referendum bid approvals.
Good evening. Right, so we sent through a packet of additional work categories for review approval. So we can release a lot of these critical work categories. So the schedule can continue. I can rattle through them all if that sounds good, or is there any questions we want to just hit some high points?
I think at this point, thank you for that. Is there any specific question that the board has on the items? We've discussed this before. I know it's an update, and Jeremiah is bringing this forward. Any specific items that we need to bring?
I just want to say thank you for the last paper, the result summaries. That really helps me when I take a look at it, because the biggest concern, of course, is the overall, how it comes in. And then you've got it broken down by how much the variance is, which really helps to see that we're right on track with a lot of it. Just a little tweak here. Thank you.
Do you want to try this?
Oh, yeah. So one of the things that I noticed on here is that concrete work has got a number of different winning bids, right, from different companies. Is there any efficiency lost when we do that versus if they were to bid it as a package?
The high school is all one package. Lakeview is separate. They kind of have their own separate schedule, and it's a separate site, so I don't see a benefit in the combining those. We're probably better off keeping them separate.
Okay, thank you.
So good? Okay.
No, we did not.
Okay, so this time, this is item 6A, is under resolution action items, so I would look for a motion to approve referendum bid approvals as presented.
Would you like me to read it?
I'm looking to hear what the requirements are. You do not need to repeat this. So the bid approvals as presented. A motion is in order.
So moved.
Kevin?
I considered it.
Any further discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor, state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Jeremiah. Okay, moving on to item 3, student representation. Mr. Nguyen.
So at the high school, the annual Winterizer event was held on January 27th, and this event brought Muskego families together through athletic events and fun activities. All proceeds from the event went to helping Muskego's 55 co-curricular programs. The Newsies musical is being performed this week, Thursday through Sunday, in the Muskego High School PAC. The Muskego High School forensics team had their first competition of the season on January 28th at Lake Geneva Badger High School. They earned a third place team trophy at their competition. They also earned a third place team trophy at their competition this past Saturday at Union Grove High School. The National Business Honor Society led a week-long service project to gather resources for the Milwaukee Homeless Veterans Initiative. Student Council led an event to help recognize all of the hard work our school counselors do. FBLA had over 40 different students competing in various events at the regional conference. 24 of those students qualified to compete at the state level competition later this spring. HOSA also had 28 students competing in a range of events at the Regional Leadership Conference. 16 of those students qualified for the State Leadership Conference later this spring. Spanish National Honor Society held the Hearts in Motion fundraiser for children in Guatemala. Girls wrestling took first place at their conference meet this past weekend, and they'll move on to compete at sectionals next weekend. Boys wrestling competed at their conference and regional meets these past weeks. At conference, the team placed 4th overall, and at regionals, the team won. Boys swim and dive also won their sectional meet this past weekend at Racine Case High School by nearly 40 points. 5 swimmers qualified for state individual races, and 3 swimmers qualified for state relays. At Lake Noon, the National Junior Honor Society completed a service project for the Hebron House, which is a local homeless shelter located in Waukesha. A school-wide dodgeball tournament will be held this Friday. The musical crew is continuing to prepare for the upcoming Aladdin Junior performance in early March. The 8th grade girls volleyball team is currently undefeated for their season, and 5th grade students graduated from the DARE program this past week. At Muskego Lakes, the musical crew is also beginning to prepare for their upcoming performance of Matilda Junior in early March. And this Friday, all students will participate in their 3rd community day of the school year, and the goal of the community day is to promote students building relationships with one another and promoting friendships by having students explore high-interest activities with one another. A career fair was held on February 7th for all the 8th grade students to explore their interests for the future. And this Wednesday, all 8th graders will have the opportunity to engage in a courage retreat led by Youth Frontiers. At Bay Lane, the PTO hosted a pool party for all students and families last Thursday at the Muskego High School pool. The Kids Heart Challenge is currently underway, and students are participating in specialized activities in their PE classes, including learning hands-on CPR. And the Girls on the Run program is beginning again at Bay Lane. Through activities, discussions, and running, girls will build confidence in healthy habits and find their inner strength to celebrate what makes them special. At Lakeview, they're celebrating random acts of kindness for the month of February. Students and staff are being tasked with filling up the bulletin board by recognizing one another for demonstrating kindness. Last week, students also celebrated their 100th day of school happiness with fun activities and dress-up themes. Girls on the Run will also be offered at Lakeview for 4th graders. And at Mill Valley, the Music and Art programs are working together on a Music and Art Playground project to add interactive musical equipment and a statue to the students' playground. The PTO will also host a Cupid's Cafe event this Friday for parents and students to have breakfast and work on art projects. The 4th grade choir was given the honor of singing the national anthem at the Milwaukee Wave game earlier this month, and the 3rd grade student council started a recycling club, and members gave a presentation to each classroom about recycling and placed reminding signs around the school.
Any questions for Mr. Nguyen?
No, that was great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck at state.
Yeah. moving on. Item 4, Superintendent's Report. Dr. Thompson.
Well, we're welcoming Elise and Robin for our annual Mill Valley report to the board, and just thank you so much for hosting this evening, and thank you staff for being here and sharing with the student council items with us this evening too. Take it away.
So welcome everyone. I'm Robin Schroet, the building principal, and standing next to me is Elise Harris, our assistant principal. And we are happy to have you at tonight's board meeting. We have a focus, and that focus is all the reasons why we love Mill Valley. And you'll see that throughout our presentation this evening. But to begin, one of the things I love about our school is our commitment to our vision of being a caring community that ensures high levels of growth for everyone, every day. It is through the lens of our vision that we do everything, and we are committed to ensuring that everyone grows, both students and staff. Being a caring community is something we take pride in, and we hope that you feel welcome and warm and cared for in our environment that we've created here at Mill Valley. Tonight, we are excited to share our academic results, our family caregiver feedback, and an update on our staff and student engagement.
Academically, Mill Valley continues to demonstrate high levels of academic success. As you can see, Mill Valley continues to significantly exceed expectations on the state school report card each year. These results are not lucky. Our students have continued to demonstrate high levels of academic success year after year after year. We are extremely proud to say that our latest school report card, Mill Valley ranks number 4 out of 968 elementary schools in the state of Wisconsin. These types of results are a direct correlation of the amazing staff that works tirelessly each day to provide high-quality instruction and our supportive families and our community. In the area of English language arts, our students continue to perform well on the state forward exam due to the high-quality instruction of our amazing staff from the first time they walk through our doors. We continue to demonstrate high levels of proficiency in this area and remain number 1 in Waukesha County for ELA proficiency. In the area of mathematics, our students continue to demonstrate high levels of proficiency as well. On the most recent forward exam, 92.5% of our Mill Valley students were proficient or advanced. This level of proficiency allows us to rank number 2 in Waukesha County in the area of math.
So, what do we attribute our academic success to? Well, personalized learning plans allow us to create specific lessons and protocols for students who need just to fill in the gaps in their learning. These plans are written by our teaching and learning coaches, who then instruct our educational assistants and their teachers on how to deliver them to students. It is an all-hands-on-deck approach to learning that helps us meet the individual needs of our students. Customized interventions based on student data provide our interventionists with the flexibility to provide students in Tier 2 and 3 interventions with exactly what they need, rather than having a scripted one-size-fits-all approach. This approach combines resources and best practices to ensure that we make every minute matter. These plans are closely monitored and adjusted to ensure that we have progress for all. We continue to refine our skills around the art of close reading, which is one of our high leverage practices. Students are taught strategies starting in kindergarten on how to be a close reader, and through that daily practice, they are able to put those skills into use as the text complexity increases. In regards to action steps for the future, we will continue to build upon our skills within the workshop model. The workshop model allows teachers to meet the variety of learner levels they have within their classrooms while delivering a mini lesson that is centered around a learning target. There is so much power in small group instruction, which is a big component of the workshop model. This year, our focus for teacher observations centered around the components of workshop. Teachers have also had the opportunity to engage in learning visits where they had to observe each other, and teachers, they were in action, and we were able to seek out additional coaching from our wonderful teaching and learning coaches who are always there to help. PLCs, our professional learning communities, continue to be an area that we seek to refine and improve upon. It is truly a work in progress, and it has just evolved so much over time. This past year, our staff engaged in conversations that were centered around common expectations and assessments. Once this has been established for all, the standards of focus, teacher teams, they'll discuss the data, they'll discuss next steps and best practices for our students in small groups. It is through the work of our Eye on the Goal team and an analysis of the forward exam that we realized a need for building student vocabulary in both math and in reading. This is something we continue to explore and will prepare professional development around.
Next, we get to share results from our family, staff, and student surveys. The feedback collected through these surveys allow us to engage in continuous improvement to best meet the needs of these particular groups. Based on these results from the surveys, they provide us with direction and an area of focus so we can provide next steps and actions to improve. Our Family and Caregiver Experience Survey continues to be an area of celebration. Our parents rated Mill Valley very highly as a place that their children learn and grow, with a steady increase year after year and the most recent score of a 4.5 out of 5. In order to continue to serve our families, we will continue to focus on 2 specific areas. I regularly receive feedback from school staff on how well my child is learning, and I receive positive phone calls, emails, or notes about my child from the school. We continue to look for ways to grow in these areas. We're setting up opportunities for teachers to share with each other successful methods that they've used to provide that personalized feedback, as well as to ask for suggestions straight from our PTO meetings with our families. This will always be an area of constant evolvement, and we look forward to opportunities to continue to partner with our families. We love our staff, and our staff loves Mill Valley and being a part of this amazing district. This is evident through our continued high survey results on the staff engagement survey. While we did not have official results from the 21-22 survey and the current survey is open for our staff, it is evident that the culture and climate at Mill Valley values that it's a home away from home and a support of colleagues here, a network of support, and a friend when needed. Not only do students and families appreciate the feedback, so do our staff who work here each and every day. Robin and I have made it our priority to spend time giving thoughtful feedback on strengths and areas for improvement through our workshop model. And particularly, we make a priority to spend time in our classrooms for extended periods of time observing that workshop in action. It has allowed us to see components of workshop. All these components include mini lessons, small groups, conferring, and independent practice.
Our students continue to share with us how much they love being at Mill Valley. It warms my heart to see that I have friendships with other students is a top-rated question on the student engagement survey, which is so important when looking at the entire student experience here at Mill. Our focus this year has been centered around the word respect. Through our additional surveys, we have narrowed down the focus to being respectful on the playground and showing good sportsmanship. This is something that our physical education teachers, Mr. Smith and Ms. Yezel, have been working on in class, as well as through visits out to the playground. Our bus ambassadors were new this year. A staff member is assigned to a bus where they award weekly certificates for positive behavior, and they check in with the drivers to see how their route is going. This approach has led to happier students who feel safer on the bus, And speaking of happy, each month we provide our drivers with a special treat as a thank you for driving our buses. We are forever grateful when all bus routes are full and on time. We continue to enrich the Mill Valley student experience by offering additional leadership opportunities. The Mill Valley Student Council is made up of our third grade students, and they are in charge of our recycling club and participate in other leadership opportunities as they arise, such as our board meeting tonight. We are thankful for Mrs. Cecil and Ms. Schmidt, who have partnered with me to get the program up and running. We end tonight's presentation by sharing what we love about Mill Valley. I personally love Mill Valley for so many reasons. I am appreciative of the dedicated staff that continues to work tirelessly to meet the needs of all of our students. Our staff provides a warm, caring, clean, and safe environment for students to learn. Parents are seen as partners in their child's education, and our efforts of providing feedback and positive praise have not gone unnoticed.
Something that I love about Mill Valley is that we're all one team. It truly takes a village to support all of our students at such high levels. There is not one staff member that doesn't play a key role in supporting our students. It warms my heart to see the love and compassion that is demonstrated day after day here.
We love Mill Valley.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your effort in presenting and for all of the effort that you put in and day out to achieve the high results that you do year after year. So you are a model in our system, and we just very much appreciate all your efforts. Any questions or comments from the board?
I just appreciate having an update from the student council, which is really cute to see. Their video is really neat.
Thank you.
Yeah. You should put that it's on Twitter or Facebook.
We'll put it out in our weekly newsletter on Thursday. Yeah, we promise.
Just a great job as usual. It's just amazing that we can get it up that high and keep it that high, so thank you.
Huge commitment by your staff, huge investment into our kids, and it definitely takes a village. The continuous learning and continuous improvement, this wouldn't happen if you weren't always looking at how you can improve your systems and change them. Every year you get new kids, and every year you need to come up with new ideas and new plans for each student here. So it's a never-ending process, and we appreciate all your love and compassion and commitment to our students. So thank you.
And everyone's smiling over there, so it's genuine.
Thank you, Mill Valley.
Thank you. Staff, thank you so much for being here. Feel free to leave. We appreciate your time this evening. Yes. Thank you. Okay, the next item is our mid-year update on our drug-free environment, and Jessica and Todd are here to provide us with an update.
By the way, this could be the world's worst transition ever, going from that amazingness to talking about drug-free environments, so.
It's so hard to follow these amazing reports. All right, thank you. I'm Jessica Polka, I'm the Associate Principal of Muskego High School. Thanks for the opportunity to present our mid-year drug-free environment board report to you tonight. This does consist of our canine search data as well as our random drug testing data. All right, so far to date, mid-year, we have had 6 total canine searches in partnership with our law enforcement. 2 of those have consisted of outdoor searches, and 4 have been indoor classroom searches. Our outdoor searches consist of student parking lots. The 2 searches that we've had so far this year we did have 5 indications, and then from those 5 indications, we had 3 instances of evidence. And then from our 4 indoor classroom searches, which is again typically 6 to 8 classrooms, random classrooms, and then some math rooms, we've had 1 indication, and from that, and then no evidence from those indoor searches. Some historical data for you here. So to note that this is the mid-year data. The previous years are the full year. One thing I do want to point out, even though this is mid-year data, appears to be a little bit higher. Of those indications on here and that evidence, most all that came from our very first outdoor parking lot search held in September. And then since that time, we've only had 1 indication and no evidence. We do feel that that first search sent a strong message to our students: zero tolerance of substances in our high school and our commitment to a drug-free environment. Random drug testing. So random drug testing, students in our random drug testing pool are students who are in co-curricular activities and or who have a parking permit. So each month we do randomly test 15 students. They are given a full panel of those 5 substances seen there. In addition, 2 students are randomly selected for the performance enhancing drug panel. So far to date, we've had 5 test dates, which consist of 75 students. Of those 75 students, 6 have tested positive. Of those 6, 3 have tested positive for nicotine only. 2 have tested positive for marijuana only, and 1 has tested positive for both nicotine and marijuana. So again, a historical look at our random drug testing. Again, this year's is the mid-year data. The other dates are those full years. We do feel we are trending in the right direction here with our random drug screens, as you can see. So pretty proud of that. And I will turn it over to Tom.
So yes, we are excited about some of the trend data we see, but unfortunately I don't know that we could tell you with confidence that that is actually reflective of the substance use issues with teenagers across America. So most external sources would say that teens continue on an upward climb in their access and use of substances. So our RDT, though we're excited about that, the reality is we're testing 15 students a month out of about 1,200 who are in co-curriculars. It could just be statistical, like we're fortunate right now that students haven't been identified. So we really do need to remain committed to doing everything we can to continue to send a strong message that substances can be incredibly addictive and incredibly dangerous and have a huge impact on students' sense of self and their commitment to becoming the best version of themselves. So some things we've tried to be creative around. So historically, when a student tested positive in RDT, it would be a semester-long suspension of their parking permit. So it's one of those scenarios where it's kind of where we started. It seemed like it would fit, but the reality is oftentimes we have students who are really committed to work experiences, and we want them utilizing their vehicles to go to great work experiences after the fact. And the goal of these programs isn't to catch a student, it's to try to get a student connected to support, so hopefully they can get the help they need to stop making some unhealthy decisions. So we decided to try an opportunity to get them back in the game, for a lack of a better term, and reduce that semester-long suspension to a quarter. But in doing so, they also needed to put a little additional skin in the game. So by giving them the opportunity to get back into the parking structure, they would have to agree to staying in the RDT, and rather than being a random sample, they would test each of the 3 remaining months of what would have been their suspension. So again, if a student was suspended for a semester, they can reduce it to a quarter, but those extra 3 months, they are now back in the pool and they will automatically be tested. Again, our hope isn't that we catch them, but it's to help that family stay informed about, is my child still making healthy decisions? Yes, it's only 1 test a month, but it's additional information that a family could make. The other part of that is random searches. Again, our goal isn't to find things necessarily, but everything we can do to send a message to a student that we are watching, and please make safe decisions, because you don't know what day we might come to your classroom and say, today's the day we're doing a random search of you and your vehicle again. So because it is a elective opportunity, They don't have to park there. It does give us the right to be able to do that. And we have parents sign off on a consent form. So if they want to engage in this reduced sentence, they're willing to partner with us to try to hopefully give their students more reasons to say no. So that kind of explains the behavior contract aspect of that. And then we continue to do the other efforts. We continue to reach out to other districts. We continue to try to stay informed about national trends and trends within the state. Our SROs do a great job connecting with other SROs around the area. Are we seeing different things? What are the latest fads or trends? What are the buzzwords? What are the things you should look for as far as posts or things that students might, sticker they might have on their laptop or possibly on a water bottle. So doing all that we can to stay informed there. Wish we had a great answer to it. And again, as I said, this could have been the worst transition there has been in the world, going from that amazing stuff that happens in our elementary schools to a mid-year drug report. But the reality is we have to have these conversations because it's heart-wrenching when I think about those little superstars that we're presenting to us. Statistically, why is it that some of those students fall off? And more often than not, it's because they get connected with substance use and abuse. So everything we can do as a system to keep our students away from that is time and energy well invested. Questions at all? Yes, sir.
When you allow a student to opt in, that doesn't take away from the other 15 random, does it?
Correct, no. So we'll always hold that 15, and that's where we have been intentional in making sure we have the capacity to do so. We work closely with Pro Healthcare to ensure that we can still do it efficiently for those students.
What happens if they're picked randomly and the one student is out for the day or is at work? What happens to that?
Are you asking about the students who are picked for the random drug testing pool?
Right.
Their name goes onto the list for the next month
Oh, okay.
if they're absent for that day.
Because sometimes, and this might be shocking, the minute that this starts to happen, you may have seen these little cell phones, like shockingly, the minute our cute little Snoop Dog shows up, cell phones are out and people are communicating.
Yeah, that's right.
And same thing when it's RDT day. Other questions around either RDT, drug searches?
Just appreciate all your efforts towards that, everything we can do.
Well, and some of your programming must be working maybe with them trying to get the help that they need, that it's maybe depleting the numbers that you're getting.
We hope so. That opportunity to help families get connected. We have awesome families, we do. And the vast majority of parents, like it is an anomaly when we connect with a parent whose student is making some unhealthy choices, where there isn't a parent on the other end of the conversation that's in tears and is disappointed and is stressing out and doesn't know what to do. So having that ability to say, here, please get connected with this support system. It is incredibly hard to break the habit of vaping right now. That nicotine is so highly concentrated, it becomes so physically addictive. The THC is so different than what it was back in the day when people used to smoke THC. The accessibility, the reality of our students who acknowledge the number of people who drive an hour to cross a state line and access pens and pods that have highly concentrated THC. It's just a different ballgame. So we have to stay open as a community and as a school to talk about it and partner with our families. So if a student gets caught up into some dangerous things, we can allocate whatever resources we can to get them the help so they can get re-engaged with their learning. Yes, sir.
Todd, one other question. Not that any of our high school students use their lockers, but do we have the dogs run in the hallways or just the classrooms?
We currently do just the classrooms, but the dogs are pretty awesome as they walk down the hallway. It's also unsettling though, unfortunately, in the nature of which the game has changed, to where again, a vape pen that contains THC in a hermetically sealed pod may not be producing very much scent compared to back in the day when there was a pot pipe, and that's where we also speculate that we're seeing more indications in our parking lot than in backpacks, because if they're vaping, it dissipates so quickly to where it may not stick around as strongly. But if they're vaping in their car, then their car is usually still.
So, we go back. I was going to ask you, and I ask this every time. You get an indication, you don't get a hit. Do we still inform the parents? Do we take any actions with the parents? Like, do we provide them any resources? Because it's fairly obvious that either they're associated with the wrong type of person who may be more inclined to give them or get them onto the drugs or the vaping or whatever. Or any of the resources if we suspect the kids may be using, we just don't have the evidence? Is there anything we do for the parents?
Absolutely, and those calls do happen. Anytime whether there's evidence found or not, we always contact the parents. And for example, not associated with RDT as well, sometimes we have words that a student is vaping in a bathroom. And again, I'm calling me old school, but I still think it's weird if you walk in a bathroom and you see 3 students sitting in a stall. My guess is maybe there's some poor decisions happening in there, especially when you smell fruity scents, which aren't typical in a restroom. So in those scenarios, you might find one student in possession of a vape, but we would contact all the families of the students that were sharing a stall and help those families understand that your child, though didn't admit this, is likely making some unhealthy decisions. And Amazon is awesome. For about $12, you can get 24 urine samples. And I know it's not a great experience as a parent to walk your child into the restroom and say, you're going to pee in this cup and we're going to have an honest conversation. But those are the conversations we have to have. So we continue to do that. And again, that statement around hanging around the wrong students, it is really alarming to me that it's not the wrong students. The use of substances across the state, and we're not immune to it. It happens in every social clique. It happens in student athletes. It happens everywhere. And I wish I could tell you this is a wrong student, but because the ease of access, still the glamorization of some of the vaping trends and things out there, students think it's cool, and they still don't understand the serious health risks that are associated with it.
So if you get an indication, how far do we take a search? So for example, if it's a car, we have the student come, or the student gives an administrator the keys or the officer the keys?
Administrator.
Okay. They search the car, they don't find anything. Do we then also search like their locker and their backpack? So anything that we think that they may have access to directly, we search through that.
Yep. And through a grant, we're actually able to purchase some metal detecting wands, which I think are incredible because it's much less invasive. Searching a student, it is honestly just a quick wand. And unfortunately, where students usually hide vapes are not places that our police officers really want to be patting down students. So it is not invasive in my opinion. Granted, I'm not the one being searched, but I think it's a far better process than we needed to have our police officers pat students down all the time.
Thanks.
Hey Todd, is there any data on recidivism at all? I mean, do you find that, or do you find like there are repeat offenders consistently? And I guess where I'm going with this is, if you do, are we targeting parents and offering them resources for help too?
Great question. We do pay attention, and surprisingly or excitedly, we don't have a high rate of repeat offenders. And again, another huge compliment to our community. They actually worked together in partnership to research around other areas to see what things our community is doing. The fine we had was $155, and the reality is most students wouldn't even show up to court to have a restorative conversation around why are you using this and what's happening. Since they've increased that word has spread far and wide amongst our students. And the goal again isn't to charge them more money, it's to get that student to show up for a court date and to have our city officials be able to say, you need to also go participate in some type of drug education program, and in doing so, we can put that fine in abeyance. So really, I think everyone is trying to work in partnership to help the families get educated, because again, it's something that kind of took our nation by surprise. As parents, we grew up with a very different scene, and identifying a student who was smoking a cigarette looked very different. It stunk for hours, and vapes, that scent dissipates very quickly. So we do have to continue to educate parents.
Yeah, I thought that was a very positive move by our alderman and mayor to actually pass that. And so hats off to our city government for working with the schools to make that a reality. So, good.
Thank you both for being here this evening. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
The last item on the superintendent's report is contributions to the profession. You see Jeremiah Johnson presenting at the WASPO Facilities Conference on the realities of a referendum project and communicating with the public. That ends the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Dr. Thompson. Moving on, item 5, other reports, a president's report. You have a couple of items So one regarding committees. So our committees are really the working and learning meetings of our school board, right? I mean, they basically divide our board and divide the work that we have into categories, and they provide a fewer number of members an opportunity to review the issues within the committee's area. Our bylaws are very clear on what that area is. Okay? And for the most part, we've activated the Educational Services Committee over 6 months ago, and it's been quite the success. I've seen a lot of opportunity for group problem solving. It's certainly a forum for multiple points of view, and it's all done in an informal setting prior to reaching the formal board and the full board. And our bylaws require and establish 2 committees, 2 standing committees. And that's the Educational Services Committee, which is chaired by Terry Boyer, and also attended by Laura Contney and Tracy Blair. And the curriculum and items pertaining to that have been going through that committee, and it's been a success from our part. So thank you for that. Going forward, to provide that same opportunity for district-wide policies. Effective immediately, all policies going forward, the review of current policies and procedures, any changes, and any suggestion or creation of new policies and procedures will be diverted to the Business Services Committee prior to reaching the full board for that same offer of workmanship, research, the informal setting. And Mr. Bowman, I want to thank you for reaching out to me and having this discussion, and just the great overview that you gave me. I appreciate that. Mr. Bowman is the chair of the Business Services Committee, and it will also be attended by Mr. Zimmerman and Mr. Hyde. So going forward, the policies and procedures and administrative guides will be diverted to that committee prior to reaching the full board. And that is all I have, other than to thank Mill Valley for a wonderful reception, a meal, and just an opportunity to be with your staff and your students. I very much appreciate it. Thank you.
So is there discussion on what you just
Oh,
announced?
yes, please.
Okay, sorry. Well, because I just want to make sure that that I understand the process. So we routinely review our policies because they're always up every 3 years or so, or if there's some sort of change in the world that we have to change it. So we always have it come to our committee, and then it gets reviewed 3 times before we actually vote on it.
Well,
So are we going to eliminate that process and have it be that this group is seeing it, and then it's going to just come to the board?
so that's a good question. Right now, it would be diverted to the committee, and then the committee would make recommendations to the full board. My guess is once that process works the same way the Educational Services Committee process works with curriculum, I'm assuming the board will bring forth a policy change to change that.
So then we're all going to be given the policies that are up for a change so that we can look at them, so that we can tell them?
Yes.
Okay. All right, just so I know. the
And that
process.
should be happening on our committee as well. When we have stuff coming forward, the rest of the board should be paying attention to our agenda and reviewing all of that, because they are going to have to vote on those as
Right.
well. So they should
You all should
run
be on
the
board
same.
with dots. We all have
Right.
that system.
It's just that after, because maybe I'm just a weird person with policies, but that's just kind of, that I always look them through. And it does take me a couple times to I like looking at them, then I think about it and stuff, and then I come back, and then I usually give it to Kelly for my suggestions and stuff. So now I should give it to the committee?
You can, I think once one, you're a board member, so you can always raise an issue
But-
or concern. However, the idea is that there's been a great success with an informal setting, right? And a lot of back and forth. There's no time frame, so to speak, right? Usually the board won't hear anything until the committee recommends and passes it up. So if there is anything that needs to be worked on or researched, it's usually vetted at the committee, right? Or through board member communication. And then by the time it gets to the full board, there's generally been enough research that the answers are had and there's buy-in. And certainly most of the community appreciates another shot at looking at what we're doing. So, yeah.
So I think the intent is to allow more community engagement in the discussion of the policy piece, right? Because right now what we're doing is we're reading it 3 times. There are, of course, some comments, but there is never allowed any interaction from us, right? So the committee allows that interaction to happen so that people in the community, parents, other stakeholders can have that conversation versus having to do it the way we have it. But there is certainly no change in that. The entire board needs to vote. There isn't anything that goes through there that isn't agreed upon by the entire board at its finality. So that was, I guess it was in the spirit of just more communication and interaction with.
Right, and I would hope the community would always reach out to us with
For sure.
whatever concerns that they have, I hope. We wouldn't be doing these committees at the same time then? How would that work?
I guess I would leave that up to the committee chair to work that out.
We would work it out.
Yeah.
So how would the time frame work in that? We'd have a committee meeting, and then the following meetings, we would start with the 3 readings required in front of the board?
Until, my guess is once that process irons itself out and you can see it and witness it, you'll probably want to change the policy regarding 3 and just go to 1 after, just like everything else that gets brought forward to a committee. You vet it, you bring it to the board, and it's done.
So we'll need to have a policy change on the policy.
Correct. At some point, if that's the way the board wishes
We'll run that through the
to
policy.
go. Yeah. So,
But we'll still have to have the 3 readings until,
yes, right now that would be the case. And what's really nice about, as Mr. Bowman had said, you don't have dialogue here, and it's against our policy and our bylaws. So the committee meeting allows that dialogue. So anything else?
No, that's it.
Good to go. All right, that's all I have for the president's report. Moving on to board member reports. Mr. Hyde.
well, last month was the State Education Convention, and Mrs. Blair has her report on there. Thank you for that, and I'm sure she'll cover it. Oh, thank you. Yeah. Until it gets back to that. The numbers have gone back to where it was pre-pandemic, so it's great to see a lot of people are coming back wanting to do a lot of what we did before. We had some great speakers, one on trust, which we had about 6 years ago. I don't know if you attended that convention, David Horsager. But a lot of the things that he talked about we do in our district already, which was great. And it was just a very successful convention, and except for the delegate assembly, which I don't know if Tracy wants to go into that when she gets there. It was not well, it did not go well, so I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you, Mr. Hyde. Mrs. Blair.
I got nothing.
Mr. Bowman.
I do not.
Mrs. Blair.
Yeah, I just got it pulled up. So yeah, I just put together a short little presentation. I just wanted to highlight, if you go to the 3rd slide down, I don't know if a lot of people know what CISA 1 does or what that organization does. So they actually put together a video to show what it is that organization does, which I thought was really nice. It was put on through CISA. Sorry, am I not talking loud enough? My cheerleader voice needs to come out. So the CISA 6 was the one that put together the video. So that's kind of a nicety if you don't know what it is. And then Lake Danoon was able to, if we go down a couple of slides, they were able to submit 4 different art displays, which was kind of nice to see that we were part of. Every year I come and I beg, and finally we got some students to be able to participate in that, so that was awesome. Like Brett said, we had a good open remark thing. I do have a short little video on there too if you wanted to see the band that played. And the keynote speakers on there. Keep going down. This is highlights of his talk. The next thing that I went to was something on naming rights, Jeremiah. And it was through New Berlin, and they put together, they called it a sponsorship guide. So it was a booklet that you could go through, and literally, like it was, you could shop for, let's say you wanted the naming rights to a room with, like a conference room with your name, and it would have the amount of money that you could put towards that, and your name would go on that door, and that was your conference room. I loved it. I was like, this is perfect. It can bring money into the district, and then people within the district could have something, you know, that they could be, you know, inspired to. I have that book, so I will give it to you when I get a chance. And then I did go to the exhibits hall, and you mentioned, Julie, about the innovative thing. So maybe some teacher can recommend this table, which is really cool. It's only 70 grand, so it's not too bad. But it's like you actually can go inside and see a human body. There's like people donated their bodies to science, so. But that would be kind of cool to have in our biology classes. And then if you scroll all the way down, I should probably have, Kari left, but she did talk about trauma-informed care, which was kind of cool, and trauma, illness, and grief. And then lastly, I was the winner of 2 people in the district to go to a conference. So that was pretty fun. So hopefully you guys will be able to pick out 2 individuals from our district to be able to go to a conference in October.
Thank you, Mrs. Blair.
There you go.
Mrs. Connie. Mr. Zimmerman. All right. Here's our...
And for my CISA 1 meeting is next week, Tuesday, so I won't have that update, but I can just email it to you. That sheet that they always, it's next week, Tuesday.
With the links on it?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, thank you. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes.
All right, thank you, everyone. Moving on to 5C, committee reports. Think we have any? All right, moving on. Item 6, resolution action items. We took care of 6A. We will move on to 6B, 4K restroom construction, Bay Lane.
Motion to approve J.P. Cullen to construct restrooms at Bay Lane Elementary in the amount of $239,362.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion?
It's with ESSER funds, right? Julie? ESSER funds? Okay.
Okay, hearing no other discussion, all those in favor, state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Jeremiah. Moving on, item 6C, softball fence.
Motion to approve the Northway fence to install new fencing on JV and varsity softball fields in the amount of $153,500.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
I've got a question. So we have, we've had fencing that has been repaired and then heaves again. Tell us what's different about this fencing.
This will be new fencing that'll be put down deeper than what we're having right now in some specific areas that are heaving, so it will be brand new, all anchored down the same. So right now we'll get a little heave here, we'll push it down, and over here it pops up, so anybody should fix the issue.
is there, and I don't know if this ever is a thing, but is there any warranty by the company putting it in that the fields have like some swampy nature to them, right? So they tend to freeze and thaw and just move things around. So do we have anything from the construction company that they guarantee they won't heave and move for a certain amount of time?
Usually there's a 1 year to 2 year workmanship warranty on, but basically anything we purchase in the district, so I believe it'd be a 1 year purchase.
Jeremiah, in this picture that you gave to us, is that just like a rendering? Because like we don't have like a stadium seating like that, and then we don't have the things for the teams. Are we getting that?
Nope. We have some really excited booster clubs and clubs that are doing fundraising for anything under the sun. So they ask us to just try to put things to paper. And actually, the rendering shows the new parking lot,
Right.
the new fencing. So it is, some of it will be happening, but the other stuff is just dreams for them.
Okay, just curious.
Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Jeremiah.
You got it?
Okay, moving on. Item 6D, Lake Danoon Office Remodel.
Motion to approve J.P. Cullen as the selected contractor to renovate the Lake Danoon office in the amount of $139,238.
Second.
Any discussion?
So the picture that you give for this one, sorry, is that just a window that they're checking in at when they walk into the vestibule?
Yeah, it'll be much like Mosquito Lake, so it'll be a transaction window right when you get into the vestibule, so anybody that doesn't have to come into the school can just transact that way. Not have to
Because
come.
do you think it's a good idea to have a door there, or should it be a wall there, and then they can, if they need to get in a door around? Because I'm just picturing like the vestibule by the high school, where it's just a wall, where they check in, and then, but they can't get into that area. They have to go through the other door to get into it. I'm just kind of concerned that there's a door
Yeah.
right at the access point.
This is almost exactly the same as Mosquito Lakes, but that door will be locked, so they won't be able to get into the doorway. Just by getting into it, they get buzzed into that door. So it'll be very similar to Mosquito Lakes and Bay Lane as well. Although at Bay Lane, nobody used to go in the
Yeah,
office.
no. There's no door at Bay Lane, is there?
To get into that little safety office, there is.
Yeah, there's a door right there.
Oh, yeah, there is.
Door right before the...
Yeah.
That will be a buzz door, and then also the door back, there'll be a new door installed to go back into the admin offices. That would be a buzz door as well.
So an investment in safety in Fund 46, their capital.
141.
So this is coming out of 46. Or is it 41?
This is Fund 41. So this is where Jeremiah's capital budget comes out of, that we designate funds for every year. Fund 46 is the fund that was established that we can put money into for capital projects and have access to start using it. That's where we're putting the money for the replacement of turf in the future.
So it says Fund 46 in the...
It should say 41. Good catch.
Should say Fund 41.
Okay, the last two say 46, so it's softball as well.
It should both be on 41.
So just so that gets changed then, okay.
Any further discussion? With the clarification that this would be on Fund 41.
41.
Okay, hearing none. All those in favor state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Jeremiah. And resolution, or 6E, referendum steam equipment purchase.
Motion to approve the following vendors and gross for the purchase of steam-related equipment for the Muskego High School addition. Do you want me to read that? Or are we good?
Let me just check my...
It says it
No, you do not have to. The bids are publicly stated here.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Any discussion?
So this is for the addition. Why are we getting it already? I mean, the building won't be ready for another year or so. Is it just we got a good price on it, or?
Much like the athletic wing that we had already purchased all the equipment, most of this stuff is due for price adjustments in the coming years, so we just want to keep things going that are within budget right now. So we're not ending up paying extra money just to purchase it a few months from now.
And do we need to receive it right away and store it, or is it something that?
There's some things, these aren't as big that we can receive, and there's some things that they will ship to us in time for the building opening. So we won't be holding on to, say, the hoists for the auto shop right now. That'll come once the building's up and ready.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you again, Jeremiah. Moving on, item 6F, instructional materials, environmental science textbook.
Motion to approve the purchase of curriculum resources as recommended by the Educational Services Committee.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion?
We reviewed this, looked through it, and all agreed that. Yeah.
Okay, hearing no discussion, all those in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, moving on, item 6G, gifts, grants, and bequests.
Motion to approve with thanks the following donations as presented. Wind Lake Country Market, $100 to be used toward One Book, One School initiative. GP4 Petroleum, $100 to be used toward One Book, One School initiative.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question. What is the
Yeah.
One Book, One School initiative? Do you have an answer to that?
I know.
Oh, please.
Chair. Sure.
I was looking around for you.
Yeah, so it's an initiative that's meant to build a reading culture in an entire school. So there's one book, sometimes two books dependent on levels. So like K1, 2 might read a book and then 3, 4 reads a book. So there's a schedule that goes out, there's 1 or 2 books selected, then that book is made available for all students in the school, a copy of the book that they receive of no charge. And then there's little activities, there's usually guest readers that are involved, and then they read the book as an entire school. So it's just, again, like a culture building awareness of the great conversations that you can have around literature and those types of things. That's what it is.
Thanks.
Yep.
Okay, all those in favor state by saying aye. Aye. Thank you, everyone. Motion passes. Okay, moving on. Discussion items, 2023-24 budget. So I have a citizen comment card. So the board invites public comment on each agenda item at the time the agenda item is brought forward before the board for discussion or consideration, meaning public comment is heard before the board entertains any discussion. And at this time, Ann Zilke.
All right, Ann Zilke, W151S8108, Harvest Court, Mosquito. So I am speaking on the quote-unquote budget resolution that is in the agenda for tonight. So this resolution is a poorly written, obviously personal political exercise filled with disinformation and propaganda and riddled with spelling and grammatical errors. It is as inaccurate as it is ridiculous. First, if you want people to take you seriously, please proofread your work. I see some of the spelling errors have been corrected, but it's important to note the difference between statutes and statues and procession and possession, because as any of our fabulous English teachers could have told you, even small errors can change the meaning of your sentences or main theses. Beyond these embarrassing errors, it is without factual basis. You purposefully conflate the issues of gun violence and mental health. This is not only wildly inaccurate, but harmful. People with mental illness are not only 10 times more likely to be the victims of violence than perpetrators, but mass shootings are often incorrectly associated with psychiatric illness. In fact, only 4% of the violence that occurs in the United States can be attributed to people with mental illness. Incorrectly correlating mass gun violence with mental health only serves to further stigmatize, which is an already marginalized group of individuals. The truth is that children and adults alike are absolutely struggling finding mental health resources. However, it does not help anyone to treat a very real crisis as a political tool, because it is certainly notable news that anyone on this board cares about the mental health of our students. Not 1 month ago, parents, community members, teachers, and students themselves proudly stood here at a different school and begged you to care about the mental health of our trans and non-binary students. Can you fathom what it feels like as a young student to stand here and beg for people to see your humanity, to simply see you as human, worthy of respect and protection? These kids stood here and did just that. And you sat by as members of our community openly dehumanized and degraded our kids. With them in the room, some kids, members of this board know personally very well. And not only then proceeded to pile on and vote against taking their mental health concerns very seriously. The disgusting disregard you paid our trans and non-binary kids speaks volumes about your real intent here today. So how dare you pretend to care about their mental health only when it fits your political agenda? Something that was glaringly omitted is that Governor Evers, to whom you address your resolution, has called for hundreds of millions of dollars in increased funding for mental health resources in his State of the State address. He's promised to spend $550 million on mental health and to make permanent a pandemic-era initiative that puts millions of dollars in funding toward public school mental health services. The fact is that, how
much time do you
I'll finish up. Yeah, I'll finish up first. Yeah, all right, one more point. The SNI narrative that criminals do not follow laws, including gun laws, is nonsensical. If you truly believe this, we would have no laws and no law enforcement at all. What you're advocating for is absolute anarchy, a lawless state. We cannot and should not base our laws on what we think quote-unquote criminals would follow. This body continues to embarrass our wonderful district month after month. Stop it. Focus on our kids, especially those who have the courage to stand in front of you and ask for your respect and support.
Thank you.
And that is the close of public comment. And for discussion items, the 2023-24 budget is now on for discussion.
Do we have a motion? Do we need a motion, or is it just?
Not for discussion.
Discussion. Okay, thank you.
So before you, so Julie, is there anything specific you want to add before we get to the?
Just the note that the governor's budget is supposed to be released Wednesday, and so once we have that information, we'll be able to provide better budget assumptions for you in March.
Okay. Yeah, I think we're looking for timing. We can work with the state, but if we do craft, though there's an organic resolution here, it's obviously drafting, can explode between now and tomorrow. But whatever, if the board does decide to pass a formal resolution to the state on budgeting, you know, we would want to do that prior to the legislature taking it up, to offer them guidance on what we're looking for. So I'm not sure when that would be, but I'm guessing probably by April or May we'd want to get this, if we want to make an impact, right? So, all right, thank you. Okay, before you have a organically drafted resolution, and I guess at this point, this is a culmination of comments that came out of closed session, multiple closed sessions regarding safety and security of our school system. And I want to thank our police chief, the mayor, and security services that Jeremiah brought in. Very informing, and so going forward, if there's a resolution that the board wants to make addressing the budgeting items for the state, it's up for discussion, so boom. So, feel free. Anyone? On the board, yes. Okay.
So yes, this is a very clunky resolution. This is, a draft. So as much as I appreciate the criticism, this is a draft, which is a working document. There are things that definitely we need to be changed, and as we go through this and have talked about it, we've piecemealed some things together that you see here. The intent to improve safety in our school, I don't think is ever a bad thing. There isn't, I don't know that, I'm not a big resolution person. I prefer to use policies. I understand the usefulness of resolutions, but they're just a clunky document for me, even well-written ones are. I think, for me, one of the things is I would love to see SROs in all of our schools. That is a financial commitment. That is not something that the city is going to do. That would be on us. So we also have an obstacle as one of our schools that doesn't have an SRO is not in our city. So that would be another obstacle that we would need to, figure out. And as far as mental health, we do have a lot of resources. We've done a lot of work in that. It is something that I think can always be looked at and addressed and improved as we identify needs in our system. I personally would like to see guidance counselors back in our elementary schools. That is something that was eliminated a long, long time ago. I think in today's world, the sooner that we can help our kids, the less issues going forward could be. So I think you need to have those people, those eyes, those professionals in our elementary schools where they're watching those kids and helping our already mental health professionals in there. Everybody has a lane. Everybody stays in their lane. Everybody works together by staying in their lane. There's nothing worse than when I see people crossing lanes and trying to do another professional's job. It just doesn't work. People are invested in their profession, and I think this document is a start to try and find a solution to some of the issues that we have seen or identified. We've done a phenomenal job with safety in our schools, but of course, anytime there's anything that happens in a school, it makes that another raw reality that it could potentially happen in your own school. So you want to do everything you can. I look forward to kind of troubleshooting through this document and coming up with something. I think we can send this off. If we put it together and send it off, I think a bigger impact would be to have something like this go through the WASB where you have a large number of, and they can lobby for that because that is their job, that's their role. So you could do both or whatever. I think those are discussions that come down the road, but I just wanted to share my thoughts on this.
Brett, what is when we can say, what's the process for setting up policy? Or I guess the resolutions such as this through the WASB to ban other districts?
Well, typically it's a resolution such as this, but a little more specific where it'll actually say a policy that's and outlines it a little more detailed, a little more concise. Okay. I think we actually do have policies on mental health. I'd have to double check that. But that was one of the things at the convention that was a big discussion was we need more mental health. I think everybody out there agrees that we need more mental health resources for our students in whatever form that we can get it to them. I agree with Terry. The document does seem like it's putting a lot into it. Possibly, maybe we should split it into 2 or 3 separate resolutions, make it a little easier to follow and understand, because we've got the issue on the guns and school safety and the mental health. So I don't know if we want to recraft it that way and have a more precise discussion on each one. But definitely, as far as the needs itself are there. We need more school safety. We need more SROs for that school safety. We need more mental health initiatives. Kelly, that's your background, and I'm sure you agree with that. You see it all the time, that we need more mental health in the schools. Maybe I shouldn't put words in your mouth. If I am, I'm sorry, but it's just everybody, and maybe we're in great shape here in Muskego, but we can always do better here and everywhere. So I think that's, and I'll check on what we have for policies for mental health.
Correct me if I'm wrong, if we're looking for extra funding, it doesn't mean we would have to change, but we could use some of that funding to relieve some of the services we already offer, in addition to adding a guidance counselor. So that would relieve some of that budget. I mean, if there was money that came. So it's not necessarily we would have to add if we feel like we have what is sufficient.
Being able to utilize funds where we see the needs and the gaps. We're a pretty sophisticated organization that we can identify those things, and so I think it's just really important that there's money for schools and for continuous improvement and safety, and all of those things are part of what we look for, and we make sure that we fill those gaps.
Yeah, so I think it's important to understand that this is a document that came from some brainstorming sessions and just some input from different places that we sought expertise on. This type of organization doesn't allow for, or only allows for a certain amount of that discussion to be held in private, right? Where there's certain concerns. So this making of the sausage, as I guess we want to call it, is done out in the open, and sometimes it looks and feels really clunky. And it feels like, wow, that doesn't feel right, or maybe we should change that. So I think that's what you're seeing here, is you're seeing that happen between us. Now that said, my personal take on it as schools, what we have heard from Jeremiah and what we've heard from the police chief and things, I would like to see more SROs in the schools, right? We talked about that as a way of continued deterrence, allowing the professionals in their industry to continue to protect our schools. And if we're going to ask the governor or in the legislature for funds to help us with that, since we have funding for 3, that's what this document does. some of the ancillary things on there that may seem a bit inflammatory, we'll work through that. That's what we're doing here. So I think I know there's concerns with that, but I think at the root of it and at the core of it, we want to keep our kids safe. So any way we can do that with the different things we have in the facilities, in addition to people power, human capital, like our SROs, that's what I'd like to see us, if we're going to move in that direction. And we're going to ask the state for help with that. That's the direction I'd like to go. And but maybe you're right, maybe we separate anything else that is maybe gearing towards a mental health. Maybe we don't want to marry those, I don't know. That's what we're here to discuss. So.
Tracy?
Yeah, I mean, I already found a couple things that need to change. I mean, you can tell that there's verbiage that's wrong with like the local control thing. The sentence doesn't make sense. Anyways, I do feel like it's good for us to identify what we find is important in our district. And if we think more funding for SROs, more funding for mental health, more funding for, I don't know what else we put in here, but those types of items, I think that it is kind of a goal of ours as a board to let the people know what it is that, we stand for. And is this document exactly what that is? I don't know about that, but I mean, we can work that through over the next couple of months or weeks or whatever.
Thank you. Laurie?
Just going to say that when the board had the discussions, the intent was out of a place of protection, caring, love, respect, because we so value our children and their safety, whether that be their mental health safety or whether that be their physical safety from harm that could be done, because anybody at any time can cause harm regardless of how they choose to do so. And we just wanted to make sure that our children were protected. And so we brainstormed ways to do that. Just throwing money at a problem in and of itself doesn't fix the problem if you don't have specific strategies and targets for what it is that you want to address, what needs to be helped, where the money needs to go, who's most needing. There's so many questions out there, and to criticize something without knowing the discussions that occurred and to make accusations about intent is really not fair to a group that really truly wants to do the best it can for this community. So I just feel we need to keep working at it. Obviously, feedback is good. You can't move forward if you don't have discussion and you don't have feedback. If you don't see your blind spots, you don't see your positive spots. But it should be a positive process, and I'm hoping that that's where we get.
Thank you. Kevin?
What I want to say is, number one, this draft and a lot of these ideas are far from political or any side of the aisle. Student safety is paramount for everything. Being a professional in the field that deals with school safety, I can tell you there's ways and areas that I've seen in the school that they can improve their safety. I don't think our public schools are hard enough targets. I think there's ways to improve, up into adding more SROs. So we have 3 of a district of 6 schools. I'd like to see that also upped. Now, the other aspect is you can't control if and when the next school situation is going to happen, being a shooting, a stabbing, whatever. It could happen in our district, it could happen to our neighboring district, it could happen anywhere. But that's where the mental health comes in. The mental health comes in because a lot of these kids that are doing that are struggling with different things at home, struggling with different things at school, like bullying. That's another thing that we need to address, is the bullying aspect of kids in different groups getting bullied, to push them to this point to decide that their next step is to cause harm to students by either fighting or whatever weapons that they come across. Ultimately, too, in my personal belief, a good guy with a gun will do a bad guy with a gun any day of the week. I'd rather have somebody that's trained with a gun, be it in our schools or even outside of our schools, to stop a threat if a threat does happen in our schools. I don't want to be one of the statistics that we see on the news for schools where 17, 20 elementary school kids get killed because of one idiot with a gun and wants to prove his point and be a martyr forever. I'd rather be in a situation where we say, you know what, we look back and we did everything that we could possibly do as a school board to protect the kids from elementary school all the way up to high school. That's the ultimate goal, is protecting the kids, giving them the skills that they need, be it more mental health, more counselors, more social workers, psychiatrists, but a lot of that costs money. And the state could figure it out, we can petition the legislator to give us money just for school safety needs, not to be used for any other aspect or any other purpose of the schools, just for school safety. It being the salaries for 2, 1, whatever, extra law enforcement officer inside the schools. I mean, it's better than nothing. And this is a work in progress. Yes, there's things in here that I want. There's things in here that I probably will end up getting, but you know what? You can't get it all. But the aspect of school safety needs to be addressed. There's things that we're doing that are good, but we could always be doing better. I mean, I bet you I could find ways into our schools that no one thought of. And if I can do it, someone else can do it.
Thank you. So going forward, so looking at this, it just sounds like there's two, there's safety and security and then mental health. And then I think equally, there's what target funding, right? And so I'll probably have to rely on Julie on this one. So when we ask the state, so those are the two areas I see based on what we're talking about, safety and security and then mental health. Now the target funding, so if we ask for money or we ask for funds to, for specific categories here, we need to basically specify, I think, where those funds come from. So for example, if we were to request along with, say safety and security, and we have the SROs as part and maybe some further initiatives that Jeremiah has, we would probably request like Fund 80 be allowed, where a separate levy can be established for that. So, you know, or the state would change the rules for that. So we would be able to consistently pay for it and not have, you know, it wouldn't become an unfunded mandate, right? Where we get dollars for it for 2 years, we enjoy it, and then all of a sudden it's gone, right? So, and I think Fund 80, that's the closest one I can think of where we can separately levy. We just think it's questionable, you know, that we could do this much, right? So
You can, but in the intent of Fund 80 and what they changed way back when we had done all the work with the PAC, was that if the resource that you're levying for isn't available to the entire community, then it can't be used out of Fund 80. However, some would argue that an SRO is serving this part of the community, and if needed, could be called off to serve another part of the community. So
and I think that's the kind of clarification we could ask for,
Right.
or to have the state petition, because then it's you know, it's sustainable funding and it's scalable throughout our system, and it does not affect our operating, right? So that you know, so that's key. And the mental health, I mean, that's another concerning part, you know, is the funding for it. So I think if we craft a message requesting, we probably need to also craft some mechanism where there's sustainable payment for it, or there's ways that mental health, well, whatever services we request stays here. It's not gone away in 3 years. You know, just when people start receiving the benefits of it, all of a sudden it's gone, right? You know, that kind of thing. I think these are the things I've heard. I think that our community has told us. A lot of the comments on here are comments from community, and so we did not want to just leave them out. But you know, whether or not these stay in here as this process goes on, as Bob had said, we cannot operate behind closed doors. So we don't have the privilege to go and vet all this out and come out smelling really good. It just doesn't happen. So this sausage making here, you're seeing it. And this is what we're elected to do. And this is what parents want to see. And at the end of the day, hopefully, I mean, the product is good and it's agreeable. And yeah, so going forward, I could separate this into two categories and then put some funding. We could attach some funding recommendations to it. I could work with Julie to try to see what we could do, and then bring this back. We'll forward this out ahead of the agenda, and then talk again in 4 weeks. Is that agreeable?
As a discussion item?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll only move to action when the board's comfortable going to action. But I would stress, April or May would be our, I think we should keep in our head if we want to make an impact, we should try to.
So we could be here for hours tweaking verbiage, right? I mean, or concepts within it. What's the best way for us to do that, yet still receive feedback from the community?
So, to do it like this, when we came out of a closed, and just, you know, because this is what was left that could not be done in closed. And so we're obligated to do it in open. If we really wanted, we could send this to a committee, and then they could meet more than once over the course of the next month, right? I mean, they're not required to just meet on the night before a board meeting. I mean, they could meet as often as they need. So we could do that. A resolution such as this with safety and security and mental health, you know, it's almost as if the mental health would go to one.
Because I thought that the purpose of when we got this in closed session was that we were tying in the mental health to safety in the schools. So you pull that out, and now it's not connected, and I guess I'm kind of confused as to, I mean, I get mental health, anxiety, you know, suicidal thought, ideations, all that kind of stuff. That is definitely something that, I mean, everyone supports and thinks that it needs money, but I thought that was not being tied to this resolution. So that's why I'm kind of confused as to why you want to separate it out. Not that I'm not saying that we shouldn't get mental health for that other stuff, but I didn't think that that was the goal of this. And I thought the top portion of it was to give some sort of like idea of why it's important, and then we dove into, well, this is what we're suggesting. Isn't that what a resolution is? Like you're trying to say, hey, this is why this is important, and here are our suggestions.
I think the question is, how do we want the suggestions to look? Well, one, what are they, and then how do they look? Right?
But I think we are all in agreement that we want more money for, whether it be SROs or an individual to monitor safety screens or doors or whatever it is that's necessary. And we also feel that mental health is important so that we know our kids aren't to a point of a mental health crisis where they are going to do something like a school shooting. So,
Well, you could separate them to get them in separate pots. I feel like you could separate them, but yet still tie them together, still have some verbiage in both, connecting
I just
them
don't feel
together.
like mental health is, because we all know the budget's already got mental health. I mean, Governor he's going to do mental health stuff. So I don't know if that's our strong point. I don't know. I mean, I thought our whole intent was to try to get more safety.
Well, that should
Like
be,
we wanted to.
when is that? Julie, when is that gonna be?
The public hearings.
Like, for the mental, yeah, like,
Oh,
Just looking
he's-
at timing.
On Wednesday, he's supposed to roll out his initiatives,
so then we'll have.
but that'll take, you know, what that actually looks like per school, that has to go through the work of the joint finance committee.
And don't forget, it's got to go through the legislature
Right,
too.
right.
That's where I think our lobbying is best served
Right.
right now, because they're good. Yeah, so they're the ones who are going to need some guidance on this, and an assurance that yes, we need this, and we need the funding for it. So, and I'm not suggesting, and I'm fine with, however, I guess, if you separate it, is it easier to build each category and then just combine it as one after, or, because at some point, the question is, how do you do this, right? How do you iron this out? What can you do outside of open session?
Right.
And what, the only thing we can do is the board can email me their changes on what they think, and then I can correlate it and then present it in open session after I schedule a meeting, but I can't then share it. Right, so, but you can send me your comments and say, I want this line crossed off, and that may be the best way to do it. Go through this and say, look, cross that off, add this, cross that off, add this, and I'll just build and then we'll just go through it. That's one way. The other way is you just defer this to a committee and have them meet multiple times between now and the next board meeting, going through this. And we probably just do the business services.
I'm just concerned that our process is gonna take too long.
Well, that's why you would defer to a committee then. Because the board is not very, we don't turn on a dime. We're like this aircraft carrier that just can't turn on a dime. So we need this data and we need this research done beforehand. So if there is a desire to move on with this, let's start there, then this should really be deferred, I think, to the Business Services Committee, and we'll let the committee meet with the charge that we want a second draft by the next board meeting, and the committee chair can schedule 1, 2, 3 meetings between now and the next board meeting.
Well, I would like it to stay as one, because I don't.
But you could talk to the committee then.
Well, they heard me now.
Well, so is that acceptable?
I will put my 2 cents worth into it, of course.
So is that an acceptable way to proceed?
Yeah.
We're good? So then the board will officially defer this item to the Business Services Committee, which, Mr. Bowman, you are the chair, so this officially now is passed down to your committee with the charter to come up with a second draft by the next board meeting to present to the board. And then it can always, but I think this has to be done by April. So, cool, you got it? Okay, and then just so we're clear, as committee chair, you have the ability to schedule your committee at your leisure, okay? And the rules of engagement at the committee are at your discretion. And if you need help, I'm happy to help, so. Okay, any other?
Posting time frame? How many days?
40 hours, yeah. And contact Lori, and she'll be the one who will schedule it. Thank you. Okay, so that will take care of that one. Let's see here.
So I move it to a budget?
No,
You don't have to do that?
I just did.
Okay.
Thank you. So we're good with A, right? And then financials. Julie, we're good, but we don't need anything? Okay. Okay, cool. Thanks. And then you have also before you item 8, the information follow-up, the financials, personal information memo. And for communications and miscellaneous business as authorized by law, Mr. Hyde.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Part of my role as the WSB Regional Director for our region is to kind of get a feel. So I've been reaching out to the other boards in our region, and I've sent an email, and I'll send an email after tonight, asking basically to sit down and chat with those boards. Basically, what value do you see in the WSB? What do you want to see? Is there something more we can be doing? Last year we did this deep dive, we did a bunch of surveys, focus groups to try and make sure that we're staying relevant to the association, that we're doing what our members want us to do. So I'm just asking if there's interest with this group to do that with me at one of our future meetings. Last couple I did, it took about 15, 20 minutes. It's not a whole lot. I got a lot of great feedback from the members, so if that's all right, I'll send out the email, and if it's okay with everybody, we can put it on the next board meeting. That sound?
Is that okay?
Workable? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hyde. Having no other business before this board, a motion to adjourn. Oh, sorry. Hang on.
Personal info number?
Yeah.
Did you
No, you don't
say about that?
do anything.
Oh, I didn't hear you say anything.
Oh, no, you just review it. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Okay, so we're good?
Yes.
Good? Okay. All right, having no other business before this board, a motion to adjourn is in order.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.